Hey guys, it's Tasha. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I say a lot. I try not to, but that's just how I am. I also say like a lot. Disclaimer now. Especially in these type of videos where I'm kind of just winging it. A little bit more of a serious video, or I guess informative video. I'm going to be talking about my emergency C-section that I had, having the boys, dealing with Alec's funeral and everything, and then August being in the NICU. So if you don't know about my pregnancy that I just experienced, I was pregnant with twin boys, and around, I think, 14 weeks, they started developing TTTS, which is twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, and basically it's where there's a unequal amount of blood flow with the placenta. They have connecting like blood vessels. One twin is giving like all of his blood and fluid and everything to one twin, and then the other, and he's getting too big, and the other twin is getting too small, not growing. Lots of problems happen. So I talk about that in another video. I can link that down below. And it talks about, the surgery that I had, going to Cincinnati and everything, and then losing Alec at 20 weeks, the day of the surgery. So that's just a little backstory about the pregnancy that I had just went through. I had the surgery at the end of December. It was almost New Year's. And then in January, I had like weekly ultrasounds at the Maternal Fetal Medicine Center in South Bend. They're just doctors and ultrasound techs that work with people during pregnancy that have complications, problems going on. They just have a little bit better ultrasound machines, and they are better equipped with everything for problems where when you just see your regular gyno, if they see the problem, then they just send you to them usually. So I had like weekly ultrasounds because, even though the surgery was successful to stop the blood sharing, they still had some in the placenta that they can't get to. So, with Alec passing away and August still being alive, it's like, okay, the pressure differences, is it going to cause August to have cerebral palsy? Is it going to make him anemic? Is he going to get an infection from the, Alec's blood? It was, a pretty scary time. But August just kept doing good, and I think by the end of February, or the end of January going into February, I got to go down to every other week for appointments there. And then I saw my OB like in the opposite week, so South Bend one week and then my OB in LaPorte the next week. And all of February was great, and then March was great. My due date was in May, and they were thinking that the way the baby was looking and the pregnancy was going, it was just kind of just turned into a normal singleton pregnancy. Obviously it wasn't. And when they said that, I was kind of like heartbroken, heart ripped out of my chest, because it wasn't a single pregnancy. No matter what, there was two. There were still two in there. But the way it was looking was that it was going to be a normal pregnancy with no complications. But when you have this surgery, the laser surgery, I think the average delivery time was at 33 weeks. And I was really nervous about it at first until I kept going to the ultrasounds. Everything was looking fine, and they were like, oh, you're going to probably just carry the full. Till my scheduled C-section date was like May 10th. On March 31st, I had one of my appointments at the Maternal Fetal Medicine Center. I had it in the morning, and everything was looking good, but they did notice that August's stomach was looking a little big, and they had asked me about my glucose test. I had failed the 1 hour one, but then I had recently taken the 3 hour one, and I passed that. So they didn't think I had gestational diabetes, but they said they wanted to see the results because that's usually a sign of his stomach and stuff being bigger. as having the gestational diabetes. So they were like, well, maybe you're on the fence or close to having it, so they wanted to see the results for that. But that was pretty much the only problem, or possible problem that they were seeing, but everything else looked fine. I went to Panera Bread with my sister, did a little walking around at Target, went home. Normal day. I stayed up till I think like 11, and then at 12:30, my husband had just laid down not that long before. I was laying in bed, and TMI now, if you've made it this far, this video is going to have a lot of I'm not going to hold anything back. So if you don't want to hear about the grossness of having babies and stuff like that, leave now. But if you are an adult and don't, get squeamish or whatever, then you can keep listening. So it was about 12:30, and I was laying in bed, and I felt like my water had broke. I felt a just gush of fluid come out of me, and I just remember thinking, oh no, because with my first child, my daughter, I had just a little bit come out. My water didn't actually break. They broke it in the hospital, but I was having fluid leak out. I stood up and I felt it run down my leg. And then with my son, I had to have a C-section because I had one with my daughter, from her just being too big and not wanting to go through. So I had never felt that much come out on its own. Like I said, they broke my water in the hospital. So I'm laying in bed and I'm like, I think my water just broke. It was like, bam, crazy. So I hop up and I tell my husband, I think my water just broke. And he, is tired, just laid down. He doesn't really do anything yet. And I'm like, I'm serious, So I get up to go to the bathroom. I don't know if he got up by this point or not, if he was already trying to get dressed. And I go to the bathroom, which I'm in my bedroom right now, and that door right there is my bathroom. And so the door is open, and I sat down and I looked down, and I am 22, almost 23 years old. I've had periods all my life. I have never seen this much blood. From the top of my underwear to the bottom, it was just completely soaked, and I just was like, I didn't even know what to do. And I was like, it's not my water, it's blood. It's a lot of blood. And I'm really bad when stuff like that happens. I just kind of I shut down. I couldn't think. I didn't even know what to do. So I got up, and I remember looking at the bed, and I had a blanket in between my legs. That blanket was covered in blood. The sheets had blood on it, so it went through the covers and it was on the sheet. And so I'm normally blood and stuff like that doesn't freak me out, but knowing that, this is coming from, something to do with the babies, I was I just couldn't. So I was we have to go to the hospital. So my mother-in-law, who I probably would have called first because I knew that she would have taken it seriously and been there, and as soon as she could. She was out of the country. It was spring break time, and she was in another country. And then my sister-in-law was in another state, but she was in the country. But she, couldn't have came. None of my family lived close enough. I needed somebody that could be there soon. Well, try to be there soon. So I called my husband's grandma, and she's the slowest person. She's it's his grandma, but she's in her 50s, so she's not or she's in her 60s, but she's not 90-year-old. I'm waiting for this grandma to hurry. She's plenty capable to get here in a timely manner, but she just wanted to sit there and be they're probably just gonna send you home anyways. Are you sure it's even that serious? She's like, can you just bring the kids to me? And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I'm bleeding. The baby could be dying. We don't know what's going on. And you want to sit here and be like, they're probably just going to send you home? Oh my gosh. And I was already freaking out. It took me 3 times to dial the number. I could have looked it up in the contacts faster than it took me to dial it. Because I was just so I just couldn't do anything. So she's like, okay, I'll be there, whatever. So I get dressed. I don't have any pads. And so I just put on a new pair of underwear and black sweats. My husband's getting stuff together. All the kids were sleeping. My younger brother was staying, but he has autism. He's pretty high functioning. He probably could have stayed with the kids until his grandma got there, but I'm not going to put that on him. So we waited until she got there. A little bit later, probably like 5 minutes later, she calls and she was like, I don't remember if she talked to me or if my husband, like I can't remember. I just remember, I think she's on speakerphone, so either way we both heard her. But she was like, well, I guess I'm gonna come. And my husband was like, you should have already been here by now. Like, he was mad. Like, she already told me she was gonna come, and then she calls back 5 minutes later, I guess I'm gonna come. Like, yeah, you live 5 minutes away, you could have been here. So I just was like freaking out. I'm like, we're taking too much time. We need to hurry up, because the hospital that I have my baby, that I have my kids at, where my OB is at, is a 30-minute drive from here as it is. 25 if you're, going fast and there's no traffic. So, she finally shows up. We haul ass. We get to the hospital, about 1:30. So a whole hour has passed by. I am bleeding this whole time. I think August is getting mad. Wait to show him off until later on, but it's baby August. He's so cute. That's what you're mad about. You're spitting up. We get to the hospital, and like, we're the only ones in the emergency room, and I'm freaking out because, like, luckily I had black pants on, but I could feel the blood to my knees. And the whole time I'm like afraid to walk, so I'm like hobbling. Well, it's afraid to walk. Plus, I'm trying to like not like bleed out all over the floor. So I'm like hobbling up to the ER, and like this guy, I don't know if he thought like I was like a drug addict coming up or something, but he had like no like sense of urgency, and like nobody in there did. Like, I feel like when you're pregnant and you're bleeding a lot, like I thought they would have rushed me to the ER or something, but no. I probably waited down in the waiting room for the emergency room for another 10 minutes. The whole time I'm like, why isn't anybody coming down yet? Why isn't anybody coming down yet? So then finally somebody from OB comes down, and I go up. I asked for a wheelchair, mostly because, I was bleeding like crazy. I didn't want to get all over the floor. And so they wheeled me up there. They had me, step on the scale, and then, they hooked me up to the NST stuff. Still bleeding this whole time. No sense of urgency. Like, I was calm, but I was getting really frustrated with how they were like, I figured they would have been like doing like a vaginal exam, bringing like an ultrasound thing to come up and look. And so they were watching the NST stuff, and I was having contractions, and they were like, well, it could be because there's so much blood in your uterus, which, is possible, but either way, I'm having contractions and I'm bleeding, and it still should be way more urgent. And then the one nurse was like, sometimes there's like a varicose vein down by your uterus that can pop. I'm like, okay, but if that vein causes me to bleed continuously for like 3 hours, I'd be pretty worried about that too. So they had to wait for the on-call ultrasound tech to come in, and they didn't come in until about 4:30. Yeah, so I got there at 1:30. They didn't show up until 5:30 my time. So I got there at 1:30 my time, and they didn't show up until 5:30. So that whole time I was bleeding. They did the ultrasound. They didn't tell me anything. They didn't even say like what they think it is or nothing. They just did the pictures and was like, okay, we'll send him to the radiologist. And not even a half hour went by, and the nurse was coming in, and she's like, all right, we have to do a C-section. So what had happened, what I assumed happened, my placenta was detaching. My OB came in and talked to me, and he said, the baby wasn't under any stress and everything seemed to be okay. But it, will get worse as, they wanted to. Do the emergency C-section there. They don't have a NICU, so he was going to be transported to a hospital. I think it's like 15 to 20 minutes away from there. It's like it's like 45 to 50 minutes away from where we are. But they don't have a NICU, and that's like their closest partnering hospital or whatever. So they didn't want to transport me because they didn't want to risk the placenta completely detaching on the way to the hospital. So at 6:30 my time, or no, 6 o'clock my time, they were delivered. They let me see August really quick, and then they took him and they did all their stuff with me. I had a lot of problems this time with my C-section. Like, I thought I was literally going to die, but I'm probably going to talk about that in another video because this one's already pushing 20 minutes. And I still wanted to talk about like the NICU and stuff. Maybe I'll have to do it into like 3 parts. So this will just be the story of the hospital and birthing. When I was getting my epidural, I tell them every time, like I've done it so many. This is my 3rd time getting it, and after I had my first one, they tell you not to jump, and I jumped. I moved. So the 2nd time and the 3rd time, every time I'm like, you have to brace me really hard because I jump. I can't help it. And so this time, I feel like they usually would get it pretty quick. And this time it was just taking so long. Like, I could feel him in there, like, twisting the thing around, asking me if I feel it in my feet yet. And I'm just like, I don't remember them ever doing that. I remember them, like, hitting the nerve. And that was it. Like, I don't know, it took a long time. And so I finally started feeling it. But at this point, I'm freaking out because I'm like, why did it take so long? Did he hit the right thing? Am I going to lose it quickly? And I wasn't as numb as I had been before. Normally, like with my daughter, I was like neck down. And then with my son, I was probably about like this area down. And then this time around, I was like middle stomach down. So like the top of my stomach, I still had feeling. Obviously not where they were doing my C-section, down at the bottom, so that didn't matter. But it still was weird to me that I could feel so much at the top. As they were doing the C-section, they were like pushing on the top of my stomach for some reason. I don't know if they were trying to like push out the baby or what they were doing. I don't remember at the time, but they were pushing really hard, like right under my boob, like my ribcage area on the left side of my body. And every time they would do it, because I still had feeling in that area, which I think even if I didn't have feeling, I could still feel them pushing down in that, like the pressure. It just caused me to gag, like instantly. I was just like head to the side, like full on blah. I couldn't help it. And so the anesthesiologist had put a little puke pan, I don't know what they're actually called, next to me. And I did actually end up throwing up some. And I had swallowed some back in and breathed it in a little bit. And so I started feeling really weird after that. And I think it was mostly probably like me starting to have like a panic attack. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I breathed some of the puke back in. It's going to mess up with my lungs. I'm going to pass out or something. I actually didn't think I was going to pass out, but I was thinking like, something, I was going to stop breathing or something. And then sure enough, a little bit later, like, I just felt really weird. Like my body, like my whole body felt, well, not my whole, I couldn't feel anything from my middle of my stomach down, but like up here, felt like bubbly and tingly in like a really like weird ass way. Never felt it before. And then I like was having trouble breathing. It burned to breathe. And I was just like, I think I saw some puke. I can't breathe. And I was freaking out to the point where the anesthesiologist like put the nasal cannula on me and like was like holding my head, trying to calm me down. So this like C-section was the worst experience ever. But obviously having the baby was amazing, but the actual experience of the C-section was terrible. And then, so after all that, they let me see him for a few seconds, and then they took him away. He cried right away, so that was good. I went to my recovery. I was so pissed off that with my first two, when you had to do recovery, you went to another like part of the hospital, and you had to wait there for a half hour before you could go back to your OB room. And this time they took me right back to my hospital room. Well, not the same one I was in when I came there, but the room that I'd be staying in. And I was like, do I have to do recovery? And they're like, oh, they do recoveries in the room now. Really? Now that I can't even have the baby with me because he's being transported to a hospital, and the other two I could have, but they had to have him in another room. I was salty. So, I had already talked to the bereavement nurse there to set stuff up. I wanted to be able to have some time to spend with Alec, and any like opportunities for experiences with him before he had to be taken away. He was born at he passed away officially at 20 weeks, but 20 weeks is the cutoff date, where you have to have some sort of like burial service, arrangement. You don't have to have a full out big funeral, but you have to have some sort of arrangement for him. So she was really helpful. Like, I got a bracelet that another mom that had lost a child makes for all of the moms that had lost a child. There was just a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I'll probably make another video when I talk about the funeral and stuff and show all that stuff off. But they said it'd probably be a couple hours before I'd be able to get to see him, because they could do all the feet prints and hand prints and take some pictures of him for me. And I didn't think I was going to get to see him again. I thought that they got him out and took him straight to Porter, but he was actually still in the hospital, and so I got to see him in the little thing that they put him in to transport him in. And by this point, he was hooked up to the ventilator. And so that was hard to see. They said that, at first he was doing really good breathing, but then he just was getting, too tired. He ended up having a lot of problems. He had, a septal defect. He had a little hole in his heart. He was having some pressure on his lungs. He was, super jaundice. He had a bunch of stuff going on, but he's came a long way. So yeah, I would have had to stay in the hospital for 3 days because that's the normal time frame after a C-section. But because this is my third one, and they wanted to make sure I was up and walking, and the next day my incision looked fine, they let me leave the next day, so I could go to Porter and see this little guy. So yeah, that's pretty much the story of the labor and all that craziness. But after 3 weeks in the NICU, he finally got to come home, and he's been doing pretty good. He actually turns 2 months old. Well, he's 2 months old now. It's after midnight. Ah! He lost it! Right, let's wrap up this video. Can you wrap up the video with me? Thank you guys so much for watching. Phone call, and so then I ended up sitting him down because he was acting tired, but now he's starting to act like he's wanting to be picked up again. So there it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you did. Watch out for the other videos from this little series. I don't know when I'm going to film them. I'm really tired. It's 1:30 already. Make sure to check out my other videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. And that is pretty much it. Bye!